Both evolution and creation scientists have observed and agree that there is great variety within each species. Darwin noticed this variety and adaptability among finches. He noticed that the finches' beaks varied in size and shape, and that the beak's features affected the survivability of the finch. Today we notice a great variety of dogs. It is believed that all 450 breeds of dogs present today had a common ancestor. Most scientists believe that this ancestor was very similar to the present-day wolf. Scientists also witness natural selection, or survival of the fittest. Evolutionists and creationists agree that those animals that are the strongest, healthiest, or most adaptive to their environment are more likely to survive and go on to reproduce. The weaker animals, which are unable to adapt, are less likely to survive. We also observe gene mutations occurring. The DNA in all living organisms contains all the genetic information of life. Sometimes an error is introduced in this genetic code. This is called a mutation. Mutations often cause disease and can be induced by radiation, chemical agents, or replication errors.
Mutations really do occur. They make all kinds of changes in genes. Birth defects, disease organisms, they're great at explaining the origin of disease, death, and disaster, not at all at explaining the origin of something new, some new trait that never exists. All the mutations we know about are only changes in genes that already exist.
Evolutionary thinking is applied to most areas of science. The field of evolutionary cosmology proposes that the universe is the result of a random explosion some 15 to 18 billion years ago. There are no examples that I've ever seen where an explosion produced an increase in order. Explosions are destructive. They cause spontaneous degeneration, not spontaneous generation.
Scientists recognize that all known explosions decrease order and structure and increase chaos. The idea that the cosmos evolved also violates the second law of thermodynamics known as entropy. The second law states that as time advances, the universe becomes less ordered. Over time, all systems left on their own proceed in a direction from order to disorder. All of us witness entropy every day as we see things age and deteriorate. This breakdown of structure directly contradicts the theory of evolution.
Now, the second law allows you to increase in order, like a baby growing into adulthood or seed into a tree, but if and only if you have an outside energy source and a harnessing mechanism to capture that energy. Evolutionists don't have that. As Sagan said, the cosmos is all there is. There ain't no more. There is no outside energy source. So the second law is absolutely contradictory to the Big Bang theory.
That the universe had to be designed and ordered in the finite past has not escaped the attention of secular scientists. NASA scientist Robert Jastrow wrote, "The second law of thermodynamics applied to the cosmos indicates the universe is running down like a clock. If it is running down, there must have been a time when it was fully wound up. The next obvious question is, who wound it up?" Gordon Van Wylen addressed the question squarely in his book Thermodynamics when he wrote, "The author has found that the second law tends to increase his conviction that there is a creator who has the answer for the future destiny of man and the universe."
Evolutionists and creationists agree now that the universe is finite. Space and time and matter had a beginning with the studies of Albert Einstein in the early 1900s on through this century. Scientists are in agreement that space, time, and matter did indeed have a beginning.
20th century science, embarrassingly, has confirmed the biblical view, because the great discovery in cosmology is that the experts have agreed that the universe had a beginning, and they call it a singularity. You see, the whole Big Bang idea really is, first there was nothing, and then it exploded. The fact that the universe is finite, that it had a start, is a key fact, but a very, very awkward fact for the evolutionist, because it really raises an issue they won't deal with, and that is what happened prior to that singularity.
Galaxies are so huge and their distances so great that we can hardly comprehend their existence. The beauty and majesty of all these celestial wonders captures the imagination. Take a look at the exquisite detail of these astronomically huge lanes of gas and dust that form a belt around the Sombrero Galaxy. Surely all these galaxies are telling us something of vast importance.
To see what it is, we turn to this special Hubble Space Telescope photo that took 11 days or 1 million seconds to expose in 2003 as the telescope orbited the Earth. It shows several thousand galaxies in a little speck of space the size of a pinhead. It's aptly named the Hubble Ultra Deep Field because it recorded galaxies more distant than any ever seen before, and leads to the estimate that throughout the cosmos there are over several hundred billion galaxies, each with over 100 billion stars. Many small green circles have now been drawn on this image, each one containing the most distant galaxies ever seen. But when magnified, we see that all of them are red. Why? These distant galaxies must reach almost to the edge of the visible universe. And because we see about the same density of galaxies in every direction the telescope is pointed, we say this is evidence that our universe does have a center, which is astronomically nearby. But this is just the opposite of what Hubble and other astronomers concluded when interpreting his famous redshift discovery. So which is correct? To find the answer, we flash back in time to the early part of the 20th century. By then, astronomers like Edwin Hubble knew that the Doppler effect could cause spectral line shifts due to the relative motion of the source and observer. Here's a real astronomical illustration of the Doppler effect. The gases swirling around a distant galactic disk that are moving toward Earth produce a blue shift. Those moving away produce a red shift. It was at Mount Wilson Observatory in the 1920s that Hubble utilized its new 100-inch reflector, the largest telescope of that day, to discover that light arriving from distant galaxies was redshifted in an orderly way. In 1929, he published his findings. The greater the redshift, the greater the distance a galaxy was from the Earth. This was a monumental discovery that modern astronomy has confirmed. It was also very puzzling. Hubble and other astronomers had observed redshifts of different galaxies but didn't recognize the systematic trends. Previously, the universe was thought to be static and unchanging. Now it was shown to have an unexpected kind of order. Why then didn't Hubble report this discovery over 75 years ago? The answer is in his 1937 book, The Observational Approach to Cosmology. On page 51, he stated, "The unwelcome supposition of a favored location must be avoided at all costs." And on page 54, he emphasized, "There must be no favored location in the universe, no center, no boundary. All must see the universe alike."
It's really obvious then that Hubble engaged himself in the most extraordinary denial of fact in all the history of science in his attempt to get rid of the center and demand the universe be everywhere the same. How did Hubble and all astronomers since then evade it? This they did by adopting a new untested assumption about redshift called space-time expansion. As this illustration shows, space-time expansion assumedly causes light to be redshifted as it travels across the universe, independent of the Doppler effect. This idea was adopted over 70 years ago, but remained untested until David and I did so and found proof it has always been wrong.
The reason? Light wavelength expansion means the loss of energy. The total non-conservation of energy loss of all the light particles in the universe due to this imaginary process equals over 30 million times the mass of the universe.
Galaxy motion is also assumed to be magically affected somehow, causing each galaxy to move away from every other galaxy as space itself expands, and in this way make it appear the universe is everywhere the same. But it's easy to show it's the greatest scientific blunder of all time. All we have to do is examine what three of the greatest authorities on the Big Bang say when trying to convince their physics graduate students that it is genuine. Of all the disturbing implications of the expansion of the universe, none is more upsetting to many a student on first encounter than the nonsense of this idea. Expansion relative to what? Expansion relative to nonsense. Only later does he realize that the atom does not expand. The meter stick does not expand. The distance between Sun and Earth does not expand. Only distances between clusters of galaxies and greater distances are subject to the expansion. Only at this gigantic scale of averaging does the notion of homogeneity make sense. Not so at smaller distances. No model more quickly illustrates the actual situation than a rubber balloon with pennies affixed to it, each by a drop of glue. As the balloon is inflated, the pennies increase their separation one from another, but not a single one of them expands. Here is another illustration proving the same point. Namely, if expansion had ever existed, galaxies would have expanded into smithereens. Obviously, no galaxies would ever have formed in the first place.
But as we saw earlier, the universe is full of them, more than 1,000 billion trillion, each one silently testifying that the space-time expansion hypothesis has always been an imaginary effect, and hence that Big Bang has always been nothing more than a big fizzle, just the figment of the imagination of those who vainly tried to wipe the remembrance of God from His universe. While the Big Bang collapses under its own contradictions, we now begin to understand the true significance of Hubble's discovery. There really is a nearby center of the universe. And this cosmic center of the universe illustration shows how galaxies diminish in size and increase in redshift as they move further from the center. So what is the significance of the center? What does it all mean? In Isaiah 40, verse 21, the Bible speaks of God spreading out the heavens, an obvious reference to the expansion of the universe we've been discussing. Also obvious is that their outward motion, their spreading out, implies there is a point of origin, a definite location from which they are spreading out from. Which point could that be?
In Psalm 103:19, the Bible says, "Thy throne, O Lord, is established in the heavens," which we also identify with the location of the great white throne described in Revelation 20, verse 11. It's just that simple. To us, the logical conclusion is that God deliberately created the universe so as to reveal that His throne, the great command center of the universe, is located so astronomically nearby that it could be within our own Milky Way galaxy. On this basis, we here on planet Earth are definitely in a privileged position in the universe. It is reasonable that Earth should occupy a special place in the cosmos because the Creator Himself lived here for over 30 years. We thus believe God is now using the heavens to confront humanity with astronomical proof that He is the Creator of the heavens and the earth.
I'm like, how crazy is that? That the stuff that holds our bodies together, that's holding the lining of your organs together, holding your skin on, is in the perfect shape of the cross of our Lord Jesus Christ. And immediately I'm thinking about the words of Paul in Colossians 1. You know this beautiful passage where Paul's talking about the supremacy of Christ and the sufficiency of Christ. He says, "For by Him," talking about Jesus Christ, "all things have been created, things in heaven and things on earth. All things were created by Jesus and for Jesus." But then the next verse goes on to say this. It's crazy. "And He, Jesus, is before all things, and in Him," that is, in Jesus Christ, "all things hold together."